Alright, so how's it going, guys? I wanted to do a quick video on the deck I took to the recent tournament in Pittsburgh. It was an awesome tournament, well run. Unfortunately, it did not work out for me. I came in ninth place, making me the first loser, which was quite unfortunate as I'm pretty used to making cuts, so that kind of sucked. But I was still asked about my insight into the deck. Did I like it? That kind of thing. So a little general thing about the deck is I do still think the deck is very, very good. It actually performed much better than I thought it would on the day. It was surprisingly good against most of what was going on in the meta. And before I get to a deck tech and breaking down the individual cards, I just want to say that I think the general plan it had going for it was pretty good. I would recommend something like this going forward. I think it's one of the top tier competitive decks right now. I think probably Targaryen is the very top notch. They might be a little bit above everyone else, but they also have a linear game plan and you can tech to beat them. So without further ado, this is the deck. The general point of the deck here, this is first and foremost, it's not a Marjorie deck, although she's great here. This is an Arbor deck. Basically, what I decided was I wanted to play the powerful Lannister characters, shocking development, and I wanted to do that with a good amount of card draw from Pleasure Barge and economy from the Arbor. This was the main thought behind the deck. I didn't think that Lannisters had enough card draw in particular to not main house Tyrell. We weren't happy with a lot of the Harrenhal decks that we had going into the tournament since the last chapter pack came out. So what you'll notice about this deck is we can start at the locations. Great Hall is amazing in this deck. It reduces the very large majority of our characters. Just an amazing all-around card, probably the most impactful card since Valor. I think the card's great. Pleasure Barge is most of the reason we're bannering, just the ability to draw 3 cards without having to clog up my plot list with something like Counting Coppers. Awesome, just amazing. And the Arbor, the other main reason we're bannering. We finish out the Eco Suite with 1 King's Road and 2 Rose Roads. At first, I was on King's Roads because a lot of the games that you did lose with this deck was because you weren't able to explode to the board quick enough. And King's Road, if nothing else, helps you get to the board faster. The problem is, in a lot of situations, the Great Hall functions largely the same. You're only netting 1 more mana and losing the utility of using it later. You're actually going down a card when you have the choice between King's Road and Great Hall in a lot of spots. And also, as you can see, the deck's fairly event-heavy. So the extra gold from Rose Road not only help pay for the events when I don't have a Tyrion in play, but it also helps to counteract the 3 Pleasure Barges that we're running. In retrospect, I would probably go to 3 Rose Road, 0 King's Road. This was just the situation of not enough time testing. I think it's close, and this split is still fine, but if I had to pick, I'd go with the Rose Road. So what else is the deck trying to do? Once we have our eco and our card draw set up, we want to play some of the most powerful characters in the game, and we want to have all the answers in the game. So let's first talk about like the answer package. Milk of the Poppy. This card is pretty necessary right now. There's just so many things running around that you need to milk. It's really the only good answer to Marjorie, the new Marjorie from AMAF, whatever, that All Men Are Fools. It's easily the best answer for her. Hitting Khal Drogo's, people are going off with Randall Tarleys, things like this. It shuts down Robert Baratheon at least for a turn when they got to go find their crescent, things like that. Milk is just one of the many answers. This is largely a board control deck. We want to set up a stable board presence and then just beat people to death with it. And Milk of the Poppy is 1 gold to effectively deal with a problem. So it's no surprise that I wanted to include 3 of it. Treachery. This deals with many of our problems that we have no other way to interact with. Things like Gaston Grey, things like Painted Table. If we have to race a wall deck, shutting them down for a couple of turns with a Treachery is great. Things like Craster going off mid-challenge phase or at the end of the challenge phase, stuff like that. Treachery was just invaluable all day. I don't think I need to explain that card a ton. Play 3 of it, don't cut it. In fact, some of the characters are concessions, like the Tickler over the 3rd Red Cloaks is just to make Treachery more playable. Tears of Lys. This card is still wildly underplayed right now. I think the 2 best houses are Tyrell and Targaryens at the moment for main houses, and people are just beating other people to death with Khal Drogo's and Randall Tarleys. In that world, the one thing I'm absolutely certain of is I want to be playing 3 Tears of Lys. I don't know why people still aren't. The card's still wildly underrepresented, but 1 gold to either blow up their 6-drop, sometimes if they've invested other attachments into, or to pull dupes off of it to set them up for either a Varus or a Valor. This card's insane. It's very, very good in this deck, as I have an overwhelming amount of Intrigue icons and the Stealth on Tyrion to help get by even the biggest of Intrigue icons. You can always get it off when you need to. Another thing is, you're a little soft to Greyjoy because of We Do Not Sow blowing up your Arbor. So you're a little soft there, and Tears of Leash just makes that matchup worlds better. Just worlds and worlds and worlds better. I would 100% be playing this. As far as the 1 put to the sword, the 1 Hand's Judgment, this was just a judgment call I made at the end, like right before the tournament. I didn't think people were going to be playing around put to the sword, but I didn't feel the need to include 2 of them, as they are expensive, they can be clunky, they can sit in my hand, and I can have draws that are like Marjorie-centric, where it's sort of awkward to get off. That being said, I thought the Miser's one of was fine. Lord Renly's Ride is another very real consideration for this deck. That's something to keep in mind. The Hand's Judgment was fine for me all day. An out to Dracarys, things like that, when you're just sitting on the board, particularly on Blood of the Dragon turns, when now your Jaime can attack. With the new event, you're sitting there, and even something like your Renly can attack can be problematic. You could easily play 2 of these. My thinking was that the deck already has a ton of situational cards, and Hand's Judgment could just be dead. And if I don't hit my Pleasure Barges, I want to minimize the amount of dead cards I had in my hand. The 2 Nightmares were just sort of my catch-all to other type of things. Also, they get used as a combat trick a fair amount. If I'm trying to push through a challenge through Tywin or something like that, or if I'm planning on my opponent attacking me with a Randall, I can Nightmares him so that he then can't get his ability off if they plan their whole challenge phase around that. Obviously, it's Lannister, one of the only Lannister ways to interact with locations. The card was just great for me all day. If I could fit a 3rd, I might consider it, although I do like 5 as a general number between Treachery and Nightmares. Don't have a ton of detail on why. 5 just kind of feels right, for whatever that's worth. The 3 Bodyguards, obviously we're running a ton of Lords and Ladies. It helps with Valor a lot, and it's just a 1 gold Claim Soak. This deck's not running the Garden Caretakers, the Tyrell Reducer guy. So our only 1-drops are really the Lannister Reducers. Where are those guys? Lannisport Merchants, and then we have Bronn, but Bronn's a different kind of 1-drop. I'll get to him in a moment. He's not really your typical 1-drop. So the Bodyguards, in matchups where I don't think they're going to be Valoring me, it doubles as just Claim Soak for 1 gold, which is a lot of times what this deck wants. It's also an attachment to protect against raiding longships, and the new Targaryen event. So attachments have their own bonus that way, but mostly it's there because, first and foremost, this is a board control Valor deck, and I want my board to be bigger afterwards than them. So we're going to move into the characters. The core of this is just play the best characters in the game. That was the big plan here. So the Lord and Lady package. We have Marjorie, who is very, very similar in my mind to Tyrion, actually. One of the most busted characters in the game, in the fact that she just makes an absurd amount of gold. So I've noticed a lot of people are building like Marjorie theme decks type of deal and trying to go off and, you know, putting in Recon Stark and things like that. And I don't think that's the right way to approach Marjorie at all. I think the right way to approach her is just as a disgustingly powerful value card. If she gets 1 trigger per game, let's say she goes off, she triggers, and she finds a 6-drop, that basically means that another rudimentary way of looking at it would be that I paid 0 strength, 0 gold for a 5-cost Intrigue Power Bicon with Renown that draws me a targeted card. That's absurd. And if she ever goes off twice per game, that's it. Like, you just accrue way too much value, way too much tempo. They're never coming back. If you can protect her, Targs can't beat you. If you can keep her protected, a lot of times which means never attacking, getting a bodyguard on her, and not doing anything stupid like killing Viserys when you don't have Treachery Gold, like I did against Chris Vack. Just don't do anything stupid, and you really can't lose to Targaryens. She's insanely powerful. The Tyrion also here, his stealth's great. He's another power icon. She's also another power icon in the Lannister deck. She was like exactly what they needed. The Renown helps you rush towards a win condition. He also just makes a ton of gold, helps me out-tempo my opponent, and lets me really leverage a lot of the super powerful events that I'm playing, and also the Hound. The good old standby of the Hound. I'm still playing 3. I still think it's right. He's absolutely insane, particularly in the games where I Valor and you Valor. Now the board is super small, and when the board is super small, a 3 cost 6 strength sword is king. He's just the king of the apocalypse for the most part. Vic Greyjoy might have a claim to that, but the Hound is just as damn good. Play 3 of him, be happy about it. The other package in this deck, the Renleys, they were actually fairly weak. Like, his ability is okay, right? The Insight, Renown, the Tricon, it's all great. It's a nice little package, and overall, I wound up playing 3 of him. I was very close to only playing 1 of him, though, and diversifying my Lord package a little bit. I think he edges out the rest of the Lords, but not by a lot. Mostly the fact that, like, he can't die to tears. His unable to save clause actually comes up a fair amount more often than I would like it to. That's a very real thing that happens. There are games where you have to milk your own Renly going into a Valor turn, things like that, because they're sitting on a Bob. Robert Baratheon, if you don't understand what I was saying. But yeah, so I think he's very medium, but he's fine here. Jaime Lannister was fantastic for me all day. He's the main reason that I was able to even include any copy of Put to the Sword. He's just so good. He's so good. Getting off 2 challenges with 1 character is amazing in this deck, particularly since the boards are smaller these days. And when I can just drop down a threat that's going to accrue renown, and it has the 2 most crucial icons for board control, he's fantastic. Play 3 of him. I got really nothing else to say about him. He's been awesome for me. The Lord and Lady package gets rounded out with Brienne of Tarth and Knight of Flowers. They're both essentially the same card. They don't particularly do anything. Once in a while, Brienne like goes off with your Renly, which is fine. Once in a while, the Knight of Flowers ability comes up, which is fine. But what they're really in there for is their icons and their renown. They're extra lords and ladies to search up with Marjorie should the game go long. And they're power icons in a predominantly Lannister deck, which is great. And they have that magic keyword Renown, which lets you actually end the game when you need to end the game, particularly when you're facing off against wall-style decks or painted table style decks that can really put you on a clock even after you've gained control of the board, which is something this deck can struggle with a little bit. Problematic locations are an issue if they have a lasting impact, because our answers to them are temporary. We have treacheries, we have nightmares. We don't have we do not sow. So a lot of times we're just going to lose the super long game to those kinds of cards, and that's why the Renown's so important in this deck for being able to close out. The Brawn is included here because we're out-ecoing, well, I thought we were out-ecoing everyone, so the Brawn was just fantastic. It turns out we're out-ecoing everyone that's not Targaryens. Targaryens are still going to have more gold than us, but this deck has a pretty favorable Targ matchup to begin with. So Braun is just a fine overall card, even if you get to use him for a turn. You're in control of when you play him. If it ever spirals out of control, we have the first snow to bounce him back. We don't particularly care if our opponent winds up claiming him. His upside is just really, really high in this deck, and his downside is very mitigatable. So I found him definitely worth the slot. Burned Men, always priceless, amazing. Surprise military challenges, they're just great. Surprise military challenges, surprise military claim, 2 drops that can come back on the first snow turn. You guys know what Burn Men do. Nothing's changed with them. They're still absolutely amazing. 2 of the line support reducers are in here, mostly for consistency and the fact that I have a ton of characters that are Lannister, but they really help during setup, and they help when I want to play multiple lords in a turn. Things like that on my big gold turns, they can be great for that. Also, chump power challenges is sort of how this deck lives and dies. I can't count the number of times over the course of a tournament where I've gotten unopposed power challenges with Planet Sports Merchants because my opponent didn't want to kneel down a big character. They certainly serve a function. If they didn't have a power icon, if they were like the Night's Watch guy, for example, that had the intrigue icon, I would legitimately consider not playing them. The power icon is a very important part of why they made the cut in the deck. Red Cloaks are great. They're probably the best non-unique 2-drop in the game. Their ability comes up time to time. Like, they're fine as just a House Day Knight, right? If they didn't have any other ability, they're fine. There's plenty of times where I do have extra gold and I can get them big. Frequently, they're sitting at 4 or 5 and able to push past big named unique characters, which is great all by themselves. And once in a while, they're 9 or 10 strength in intrigue challenges. They're awesome. I wish I could get the 3rd, but due to the concession of the triggering circumstances of treachery, we needed a tickler, just for another unique Lannister in the deck. Emery Lorch, he's the bro, right? He just kind of does a little bit of everything. He's great on a small board. He's got a sword. He's got a power icon. He has renown shockingly often in this format, just like way more often than you would think. And he's very good in the deck. I would never play more than one. He also survives first snow. He's just good enough at every juncture of what this deck wants. He plays nicely enough with the rest of the cards that he's sort of exactly what the deck wants, even though he's not as efficient as a lot of the other cards. Like, he's not a super efficient body. He's not a super powerful body. He just kind of does enough, just enough of everything to make the cut here. Sir Colin of Greenpools very easily could have been the third Red Cloaks, but I erred towards the extra power icon and the fact that he works with Great Hall, whereas the third Red Cloaks does not work with the Great Hall. So those two factors combined put me over the edge of the third Red Cloaks. I think the deck is fine and playable if you want an additional Red Cloak in that slot instead. But I've been mediocrely, I don't know, he's fine. He's okay. Gregor put in a ton of work for me all day. Guy's big. And the decks that can't deal with him just cannot deal with him. They can't get through him. He completely changes the way they have to do challenges. People will play around his ability more than they should or less than they should. He gives your opponent chances to make mistakes. He's just a huge beat stick. In particular, he's great against Targaryens. Like, what are the Targaryens going to do about him? The answer is nothing. They're very likely to die to him. Also, no one's playing Tears of Lys, which is his biggest weakness. So, yeah. If the meta changes and more people are playing Tears of Lys, this can easily be changed into something else. For now, Gregor is amazing, and I'm very happy with how he performed. Lancel. So Lancel's a 2-drop that A, helps trigger Treachery. B, I don't care if he dies. For when Marjorie's in play, I can often just spend 2 to get a Renly, something like that, which can be a bit gimmicky, but does come up once in a while where it's actually the correct play. But the main reason he's in here is A, for, like I said, for Treachery, and B, most of your 2-drops, what do they do in your average Game of Thrones game? You play them, they do a challenge, and then they die. They're claim soak, right? We all know it. That's what 2-drops are there for. So your big characters don't have to get hit. Once in a while, your Lancel has, I don't know, 10 strength because he's on the board with the mountain. If he doesn't have 10 strength, there's plenty of situations where I have a Jaime or a Tyrion out, which means he's effectively a Ser Jorah. Granted, he doesn't have the upside for now, but he doesn't have the downside of only winning X amount of challenges before he dies either. I think the card's very powerful, and I wouldn't even consider playing the deck without one. I think he's better in the Banner Lion decks because I don't have Tywins and Cerseis clogging up the Lord and Lady slot, so he's turned on more often than you would think. When he's not turned on, you can just play him, and he's still, claim soak. He's fine. He dies. He has the ability to work with Marge. He'll turn on your Treacheries in a pinch. He was amazing for me all through testing and amazing for me all throughout the day. Would not consider cutting him at all. The last guy in the deck is Varys. So I expected more Lannister than there was, so I only played the one Varys. Varys single-handedly won me like 3 games on the day. He was fantastic, and if I had the tournament to do over again, I would include a second one. I think 3 is overkill, but the main reason he's so important is, A, I'm playing a trading deck. So sometimes you're going to open on either like the 9-0 opener plot or like Noble Cause, things like that. If I get to go second on the first turn of the game, if I open on a trading, that's it, man. Just deploy your board and I can embarrass you to high hell. Another thing about him, notably, the Greyjoy saves do not interact with Varys at all. They have Iron Mines and they have Risen from the Sea, and none of those do anything about Varys. Greyjoy can't come back from a tempo hit like that. You can just beat a Greyjoy player in 1 turn with Varys. You get off Varys, I'd conservatively say you're like an 85 to 90% favorite to win that game if you get off an early or mid-game Varys against them. It's so disgustingly powerful there. Another faction that has a lot of problems with him is Baratheon. And Baratheon was showing up the tournament, not so much as main house. I did see it bannered quite a bit, particularly into Greyjoy, due to the synergy with Marya Seaworth, which I actually thought was really interesting. I hadn't considered that before the tournament, but it looked good. And yeah, Varys, just all-star, absolute all-star. He also sets up when you need that absolute Hail Mary. You're just so down and out, so you can Varys into a Valor just to completely wipe the board and start again. And hopefully you have your Great Halls and your Arbors online, and, you've drawn some extra cards, so you have better eco and better card draw for the full-on board reset. One card I want to talk about that I had cut, that I was actually a huge fan of, was Highgarden. We cut Highgarden for two main reasons. One being that the Harrenhal Tower Full Lion Jumper decks are definitely a much lower percentage of the metagame than they were formerly, and that's its singular best matchup, right? It's absolutely great against that deck, requiring a Treachery or Nightmares every single turn they want you go off, otherwise you're just murdering their best characters after they Harrenhal you. So it was great there, but there's not that many of those decks running around, and also it helped us in the Greyjoy matchup, where we were already a little bit soft to We Do Not Sows. Now we can either play the Arbor, not play the Arbor. We can decide that based on our hand, that kind of thing. We can sort of protect the Arbor. Spending 3 gold for another location that just can easily be blown up by We Do Not Sow and stuff like that just seemed particularly bad. Plus, people are playing Sea Bitch nowadays, so stealing it, using it against you, super powerful. And in general, what I was finding was, by the time because the first several turns, you're playing to the board, playing to the board, playing to the board, right? By the time I have a chance to set up a Highgarden, most of the time, the game's already decided. I'm either so far ahead that I can't possibly lose, or I'm so far behind that I can't possibly win. And Highgarden wasn't doing much to swing that, because I wasn't able to ever deploy it to the board early and just get it fully online. So that's why we wound up cutting that. Onto the plots. So the two eco plots I decided to go with were Summer Harvest and Trading with the Pentoshi. I think that there's no possible way that I would ever cut trading. I'm playing a deck that includes Varus and the Arbor, so trading is just too valuable to me. I need it. I have to have it. It's 10 gold. It's the biggest punch. The new 9-0 plot, I don't want to let my opponent draw cards ever. In fact, half of my deck is trying to outdraw them. That's a large part of my win condition at the end of the game. So that's not something I want to do. That's why trading's in there. Summer Harvest was replaced over Noble Cause to give me initiative on other eco turns, and also because of the prevalence of trading, if I hit their trading with it, it's just amazing for me. I kind of get to do whatever I want. In practice, I saw a lot more Summer Harvest than I would like, and in 5 of the 6 rounds, I wound up opening Summer Harvest into Summer Harvest, which was sort of an anomaly. But yeah, 5 of the 6 rounds, we each Summer Harvested each other, acting as almost an effective naval. Granted, most of the time it was better for me because I had Arbor. I want to say 2 or 3 of those times, but that's still something to note, and this card's general power level does go down a little bit if everyone else is using it. Something else to keep in mind was it's the only summer plot in the deck, and on those crucial turns against winter choke decks, that kind of thing, which we were expecting but didn't really show up, having the summer trait is worth more than 0. It's certainly worth something. The confiscation is mostly due to the fact that we are playing Marjorie. It's one big concession to her, as when she's turned off, she doesn't do a whole lot. Granted, pulling it off of Tyrion, pulling it off of Jaime, you know, to deal with opposing milks is what I was talking about. It's fine, it's okay. If we weren't playing Marjorie, we wouldn't need the confiscation, but we are, and we do, and that's not something I would change. Valor is the preeminent board clear going on right now. It's great in this deck. Usually between Marjorie and the bodyguards, we're able to, and all the dupes, if you notice, we're playing either 3 or 1 of all of our unique characters for the most part. I think literally for every single one of them. And Valor was just great all day. It's a main core part of the deck. You're pretty much Valoring every game. There's the very rare game where, like, you got Valored and then you're trying to recover, so it's like your 7th plot type of deal. They do come up. It's few and far between, and it is a Valor deck. This is here to stay. First Snow of Winter was the other choice. This was largely in concession to A, I expected a ton of Targaryen, which there was, and B, I expected a pretty decent showing of Night's Watch, which there wasn't. And the First Snow of Winter is just simply the best plot against both of those factions. A lot of times it can single-handedly win you the game. It can just give you that one turn of oomph to power past whatever it is that they're doing. And yeah, First Snow of Winter, I'm pretty happy with it. It wasn't as good as it could have been on the day, because I did play against a decent number of like Greyjoy and Baratheon and Stark decks and things like that, things that had mostly higher strength characters, but I easily could have played Targaryen 4 times over the course of the day. I only played it twice, but the First Snow is great, and I really do like it in this list. March to the Wall, I'm not sure if it's right in this deck. It's certainly good when I'm playing Varus. It has very positive interaction with him, and it also has very positive interaction with all my kill spells. Oftentimes I can murder most of their dudes and then march their big duped guy away. Sometimes it does come up to bite you in this deck. The low gold and the low reserve sucks. Playing this deck, you have to be aware that you're going to be discarding cards a fair amount of the time. We've got multiple plots that have a reserve of 5, and we draw a ton of cards. So you just sort of have to be aware of what's important in the matchups and make the correct discarding decisions. I had to discard multiple treacheries against Baratheons, for example, on back-to-back turns, and it was the right play. I wound up winning the game because of what I kept, but there's a lot of skill that goes into figuring out exactly what to keep. So I would recommend practicing, because you are going to be discarding cards with this deck. It's just a fact of life. It's something you have to accept, move on, it's going to happen. So a lot of your draw winds up turning into what I call looting for Magic. It's like draw and then discard a card, which is fine because you're getting card quality instead of sometimes just the raw card quantity. Pulling the Strings is a super flexible plot. This acts as our second confiscation if we ever need it, another March to the Wall if we've got someone on the ropes. Against most of the decks that are running Counting Coppers, those are the decks that are trying to go super long, and this is my copy of Counting Coppers, so I can keep up with them. If they're not running Counting Coppers, I'm probably ahead on cards anyway because I have Pleasure Barge, and if they are running Counting Coppers, well, now I have my copy as well, provided they don't play it as their 7th plot, but that very, very rarely comes up. Pulling the Strings, 5 gold. It's just an all-around all-star. It's great. I had considered cutting it for something more determinate that I could count on a little more often, as there is a random element to it, but that would have just been wrong. The card's overall power level is just too high, so I'm a big fan of pulling the strings in this deck, and I don't think if I was to do the tournament again, I would change any of the plots. I think the plot list is exactly where I want it to be. The things I would consider changing, like I said, were like the King's Road to a Rose Road. I'd probably add a second Varys somewhere, and maybe tweak a couple of the small character numbers, and maybe mess with at least one Lord Renly's Ride or like 2 Hands Judgments, something like that. Small little tweaks, but overall, I think the deck's very good, and I think it's well positioned right now. Particularly, people are trying to kill me with Randall Tarley and Khal Drogo. This deck's really good against both of those. And if they're going to go all in on their Renly with a million attachments and the land that lets you untap them and all of that stuff, I generally just like the placement of this deck a lot. It's also pretty good against the Barra decks, the Greyjoy decks. Like, when a Greyjoy player runs into me, sure, if they blow up my Arbor, that sucks. But that's really all they have. I'm running triple Milk and triple Tears for all of their important characters. I have Varys. I just feel like I'm a very big favorite there. And that's pretty much the deck in a nutshell. I don't know, if you guys have any questions about it, leave it in the comments, and I will try and get to each and every one of them. I was also asked to do a general state of the meta thing, so I'm going to keep it quick, as this video has already gone a bit long. I think that Targaryen are probably a slight notch above everyone else right now. A, because of their overall power level. B, because their economy is insane right now. C, the stand land, the new plaza lets you pitch a card to stand a character, is an insanely powerful card. That card's great. And D, because it's new that they're on top again, and people haven't had a chance to adjust to it. So I think once the meta adjusts to Targaryens, they'll be a little bit more in line with everyone else, although the next chapter pack does look strongly in favor of Targaryens. So I would recommend playing this deck or a similar deck going forward. Several of the people I recommended to had very positive results. There was a 2nd place, there was a top 8 in multiple other tournaments. I was the first loser, but I cannot blame the deck for that, coming in 9th. That was my own misplay, as I was not on my A game that day. And yeah, play bad, get punished. But I do like the deck. Once again, if you guys have any questions, check it out in the post it in the comments section, and I will do my best to get to each and every one of them. If you like the video, there will be more coming. I'm still very new to YouTube, so bear with me. But yeah, if you like the content, hit the subscribe button. Thank you guys very much. I appreciate it, and I hope you guys like the deck. Have a good one.